So let's get into the third part here. This is what everyone wants to hear about. Who won E3? There's the casual answer of, we all won E3, we're gamers. But people love to have the conversation of, who did better, who did worse. I'm going to go real quick. I think that Microsoft and Sony had the two best conferences. We'll talk about personally who we think did better. For me, I think them two had the best conferences. I think worst the first is EA, obviously. Ubi, just because it was 2 hours and there was a lot of fat they could trim off. And then Bethesda, I think they were better at hitting. For me, PlayStation had, like we've talked about this multiple times, it was a hype trailer for other conferences. Like, I liked what they showed off. Didn't feel like a conference. Didn't feel right. The orchestra was cute. It was a little bit weird. It was weird that it played 5 minutes before anything and just kept playing and playing and playing. Sean Layden and Andrew House are the only people we saw. I didn't feel like they were connecting with the devs at any point.
Where you at, Shuhei?
There was no indie games. Apparently, PlayStation's supposed to be the platform where there's all these indies. Where were they?
Zero indies.
There was no JRPGs.
They're working too hard on that fee exclusivity, bud.
Where's the Ni no Kuni 2 release date? Where's these?
Ooh.
Where's these other games? Like, it was like, here's a game that kind of looks like Last of Us. Here's a game that kind of looks like Last of Us. Here's a game that kind of looks like Uncharted. Here's a game that kind of looks like Uncharted. And then Spider-Man. Like, there was all those games looked great, but there was no variation. For me, I'll go really quick. I think Microsoft won E3. Best conference front to back, had the most well-rounded conference, spoke to gamers, spoke to people who owned a current Xbox, making them know why they should keep owning an Xbox. Spoke to, I think, PlayStation 4 gamers saying going forward you might want to move to Xbox with the Scorpio or stuff like that. Spoke to people who haven't upgraded next-gen console. Hey, you want to play 4K Blu-rays? We have the cheapest 4K Blu-ray for you. You currently play games. You want a custom controller for super cheap, relatively speaking? Cool, here it is. Xbox Live, all the cool stuff, incremental death by 1,000 cuts. Microsoft, to me, had the best conference front to back. There's no question about that. They spoke to gamers, I think, and they're doing what's in the best interest of gamers. I think Microsoft killed it. What about you guys?
So I totally understand your discontent that a lot of Sony's games are so far out. But to me, I still think Sony won. Well, I'll start at the back. Obviously, EA was the worst. Ubisoft had some good games, but they went on way too long, and I got bored. I even got bored listening to Matt Parker and Trey Stoner. I think I mixed those last names up. But, it just went on, and it just dragged on, and I got sick of it. And then Bethesda next, and then Microsoft did so good, but I still think, for me, Sony did much better, because even though most of those games are so far out, like top to bottom, they all do so much more for me than most of the games at Microsoft's conference, where the only game from Microsoft I was mostly interested in was State of Decay, maybe Gears of War, but otherwise nothing else there did it for me, even though, there are overall closer release dates. So even though I got to wait to truly appreciate Sony's conference this year, I still think it was a better conference because the games that they showed were much better to me. Like, they knocked it out of the park on each of the games they showed.
You really love the Naughty Dog games, though, and you don't really play indie games, it seems like. So I think, they did hit it out of the park for you.
This is obviously a very subjective question.
Are you really going to love this conferencing the same conference next year, though? I'm obviously being dramatic, and that's not probably the case, but, a lot of these games are so far out.
Yeah, and for about half of them, we'll get release dates for next fall and next E3, right? Presumably.
Yeah.
And then for the other half will be, no release dates, or they'll just say 2018. But all the games they showed, I just like them. They look like so much better to me. Like Days Gone, obviously we talked about Horizon, that looks phenomenal. But Days Gone was a nice surprise. Like, even though it is similar enough to The Last of Us, I am a little concerned about that. But I like the hordes. I'm really excited that you're going to be able to drive a motorcycle away from a horde of zombies type of thing. Like, I have this visual in my head of what that's going to be like. There's the way that the zombies just kind of fell like paper, like you mentioned, was a little odd to me, but I'll give them the benefit of the doubt on that. It's just, overall Sony's games just did a lot more for me. Even God of War, which I've never been interested in at all, the different take they've kind of gone at it with for this version is much more interesting and appeals to me a little bit more. really though, like The Last Guardian, I don't even think we mentioned that once in any of our podcasts yet, which is surprising.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, but I don't get that game. I don't think I'm gonna like it. That was one thing.
I think that game's gonna be mediocre at best. I really think so. It just sucks to the people who are waiting for it, but
I don't get the appeal for that. But yeah, for me overall, I like Sony's conference better.
Interesting. You're wrong. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, interesting. I want to move on to our game of the show, but just to recap, I felt that Microsoft had the best conference. By no means Sony's wasn't bad. I just felt Microsoft's was better. Dom thought Sony won. It played to his personal interest the most, which that's what E3 is for, right? Jordan was with me, so as a consensus, our pick is that Microsoft won E3. Take that as it is, whatever.